Thanks for having me back. But the reason I'm asking to film this, just for a learning sake and reference of what we're going to discuss and cover today, is educating people. That's one of my highest priorities. Obviously, it always has been from an education standpoint of when I started as a real estate agent to then leading a team, and now, obviously leaning into the space of helping serve not only individuals through my team, but also outside of that is, the true pay it forward and the best client experience you can give someone would be educating them. So I'm trying to, use more within the platform to touch more individuals to educate them. So thought this would be a great way to utilize time for some tips to the one takeaway I had through a podcast that I'm big about is you are the content. So a lot of people make the excuse, I don't have the time to record, I don't have the time to film, I'm already struggling to find time to do my job, let alone go and make some content. Utilize these opportunities as the content. So just a quick takeaway. So I appreciate you guys letting me record this and film it.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. So, that being said, what we'll do, I started the recording, and so we're ready to go. I know most of you on this call were on when Nico joined us before, and kind of gave us a breakdown of who he was and how he's gotten to where he's at. And I got a ton of really great feedback, Nico, after that call. One of the managers that we have in the Napa Sonoma area, he was traveling today, and he was bummed that he wasn't going to be able to be on. He was like, "Oh, you're gonna have, oh wait, there he is. Look at, he made his way onto the call. He found
From
it. There's
Starbucks.
Gary. Gary was looking forward to hearing from you again, and I think the rest of us are as well. And so, what's really neat is I have to be protective of my people's time, right? Whenever I'm going to have somebody on a call, and I try to be careful with who's on and what they're going to cover. There's been a couple instances over the years where somebody's got on, and I was like, oh man, they just wasted people's time, right? And I don't have to worry about that with you. I was nice to be able to call Nico and go, hey, if you want to join again, we'd love to have you. If you could touch on this and then whatever else you want to give the team, I feel confident is going to be a value add. So Nico, there may be a couple of people on this call that don't know you. So if you want to give a, quick little introduction as to who you are, right? And then I'll just let you kind of take it away with the presentation you have for us today.
Yeah, let me just set some kind of intentions for the meeting. I always like, as Lawrence just, he's a great leader. Honored to be in front of all you guys. Highly respect your guys' company and what you guys are doing. My intentions, I think of life now like seasonal. A lot of people put yearly, 5-year, 10-year plans together, and I think that is very difficult in our industry. It's always shifting. So I think of things seasonally. In this season, I'm leaning a lot into a more collaborative conversations with my team and individuals to identify what's on their mind, what are their struggles, and you can only do that by people being vulnerable to share, ask the questions, and have the desire to learn, get better, improve, maybe think differently. So my intentions today, I mean, Lawrence called me in regards to the NAR settlement. We'll definitely cover that. We'll probably open with that. Um, I kind of told him in a pre-talk before we launched today that it's kind of premature. Things aren't going to happen until July. I'm going to dive deep into that, or as deep as I possibly can, for what I'm educated on, and continue to get updated and educated as well. A quick little bio, because I'm here to hopefully serve you guys today and not to do anything for self. Obviously, I always get better by prepping for these meetings, and really look forward to them, especially with individuals like you, to be in front of all you guys, get collective feedback, and just make each other better. Quick bio of me. I don't want to start too deep, but I think it is important that you understand how I'm driven. Everyone's driven a different way. Mine was to prove to an alcoholic father that I could almost save him in a way. So my works of actions where by doing work that would hopefully changes someone else's behavior, what I then recognized is, with alcoholism or anyone, familiar with addiction, it didn't matter what I did. He had a problem beyond any actions I ever do in life, and proving him to make that correction. I created a lot of good habits and bad habits, even though I thought they were good. I've worked very hard, probably over the last 6 years, to hopefully correct them or get better about them, to find that balance in life, and also the reason why I do certain things. Where my heart's at today is really believing in what I'm doing. People, it's really easy to sell if you believe in the product. It's very difficult to sell, or call it closing. And the word sell sounds a little bit difficult, but if you believe in what you're doing, you'll be successful at it, as long as you don't quit. And a quick little takeaway that I heard this week that I love is, in life you're going to lose a lot. As long as you don't quit, you're going to get to where you want to be. So be okay taking the L's, just never quit. So anyhow, I run a real estate brokerage. We grew last year. It's called Gentili Real Estate, for those who don't know. That was the primary start of the buildup of my organization. It's now an enterprise. We have an investment company, and those are the two primary businesses I run now. Old Nico, and there's a moral to this whole story. It's not a pitch on me. I really focus on two companies, which I think that's even a conflict. I got Gentili Real Estate, and I got Gentili Real Estate REimagined, which we define as GREI. Within the brokerage, we have about 85 agents. We had a killer Q1. I'm going to update you guys on that, because I think it's really important to see kind of the performance of local brokerages here in the Valley. And it's been awesome. I've had a lot of clarity in that, of hiring and firing and trying to solve to fill all the holes and gaps. But I feel in a very good space. We have a great culture. I think that's the most important thing, is culture and brand. And then on GREI, it's primarily buying and selling, so call it flipping homes. We've completed 40 projects so far this year. Our goal is to get to over 100. Last year we did 65. So we can talk about that space if wanted or needed. But I think that's even a conflict, and I'll just kind of wrap that up real quickly, is that I was a believer of diversification, if you were to call it. And diversification is good, right? Because when one's doing bad, you're hoping the other one does good, and it balances each other out. But I think that's a conflicted mindset, and also a way to run an operation, that you should lean into one thing and do it really, really good. Actually, the word I would use is great. It's that book I read. If you guys have read it, it's Michael Jordan's coach, I think Tim Grover, where he talks about good to great to unstoppable. It's a great book. If you haven't grabbed it, I would highly. He has 2 books that are awesome. So anyhow, that's where I'm at within the brokerage side and the investment side. Also have other passive investments, but that's really not relative to today's topic of conversation. Before we dive into kind of some notes I have here in front of me, which will start with the NAR settlement, does anyone have any questions on clarity of what I do or any of the businesses? Okay. I'm going to pause again right after the NAR settlement conversation, because I think it's really important that I ask, and maybe drop them in the chat box of any topics you guys want me to cover, so I make sure I'm not taking up too much time on one topic that I think you guys want to hear. I rather talk on the topics that you guys do want to hear. So this meeting's for you guys, as Lawrence and I have carved this out for you guys. It's not for him or I. So I want to make sure I'm really speaking to what's on your mind and what you'd like to hear, rather than me just guessing. But Lawrence, obviously, his need and want is the NAR settlement. So I'm going to chat about that. The NAR settlement, obviously, the headlines is a $418 million settlement dispersed over the next 4 years. It's not, the changes of the settlement is not taking place until July. And that's why I thought not necessarily this conversation, but a lot of the stuff we're doing is putting the cart before the horse. I like being proactive rather than reactive. And I'm sure you guys are interested in that, of the proactive things and measures that most real estate brokerages are doing to stay ahead of this would be a good conversation to talk about. But I think it's more important that from my position as a producing realtor, also helping educate and inspire and develop other big producing realtors. What does this mean? So it's kind of interesting that if you guys have been watching headlines and news, which most of us do, how much the headlines and also the education has changed within the last 3 months or so. I mean, it's really interesting as I was prepping for this meeting of like the certain headlines of it started with no more commissions offered out to any real estate agents to, oh, wow, we're just getting rid of the buyer side agent commissions to, okay, we all need to get educated on buyer rep agreements because now you're going to have to sign buyer rep agreements with all buyers if you want to get compensated to hourly rates for realtors rather than commissions. I mean, you hear it all. But it does mean that obviously by the actual legalities that we do not have to offer out commissions on the MLS. So there's no more header line when we fill out an MLS input form on the, call it the Fresno MLS, where it says concessions offered out. It would be your 2.5%. Did that section go away? Yes. But could you have put zero historically? Yes. So in the big picture of things, that has never changed. The commercial industry has been doing it forever, where you've never had to pay out that buyer side if you didn't want to. It was negotiable. But the standard, as you call it, the customary per Fresno County is traditionally now 5%. It was 6%. And people really use that as a sales tactic of, oh, well, customary is 6, but I'm going to lower it to 5. And then you use the other sales tactic of, no, the customary is 5. People that tell you 6 are lying to you because those are long and gone. I'm going to do it for 4.5. It's all sales. They try to tell people what they think they want to hear without actually knowing what they actually need and what you're offering them. Commissions is the last thing I talk about, and I always tell agents, if you're leading with money, you're talking to the wrong individuals, and you're actually not serving them appropriately. So that's one conversation in regards to commissions offered out. I struggle with this, but running a team, I have to pay attention to it more. So when this first all came hammering down, I was like, for my personal business, this doesn't change. I do a lot off market. So I've already historically, since I started, been having these conversations in regards to when I have an off market opportunity, we don't talk about commissions until I bring them an offer. Sometimes if I, don't necessarily quote unquote trust or know the client, I have to have those conversations ahead of time. But it was like, okay, here's a price in which we thought we would quote unquote have a offering price, because it's not a market price because we're not going to market. And then, okay, when I do deliver this price, how is the expenses going to be paid out in the commissions? So these are conversations I've been having since the beginning of my career doing off-market opportunities. And what that is having very clear communication with your clients based on their expectations. It's also clarity in what their net profitability is going to be when you do a net sheet, so on and so forth. But I can't say that on behalf of all my agents that specialize in the FHA, VA, call it kind of mid entry level to low entry level opportunities. Those are people not necessarily doing too many off market deals. It's a traditional setting where you go to market, you have a signed listing agreement with commissions broken down and structured. These are individual agents of mine that I'm having to educate more. So with that being said, I'm going to jump into how we're educating from that perspective. One, I hired a coach who knows more than me. So that's the first thing, because the fact that I think I can know it all is going to be really difficult. So I always look, and I'm a big, kind of believer of like sports and competitive environments, obviously friendly competitive environments, is that if I think I have the capabilities to learn it or already know it or already have the answers to it, I am being a disservice to my team. I'm always looking for players at a much higher level than I, and hopefully hyper focus in the places that really know what is going on within that certain field, because these are totally different playing fields. So my coach is probably locally known, but he's very big in the NAR, institution. His name's Jared James. I just brought him on. He sat down with the NAR president. He's utilizing a lot of his connections. And I saw that as a monthly expense that was a huge beyond return on investment for myself and my agents. So not only am I giving my thoughts in regards to my own research based on the people I do believe in and trust, I'm bringing an individual who's even at a higher level, hyper focused on that as a public speaker within the real estate space, and then adding the contributing education to my agents. Um, it's funny, as most people think you're going to shift in the education to a buyer education on getting more educated on buyers. His whole series for the last month has been on how to get listings. So it's really interesting how people are thinking you need to shift. I've sat down with a lot of my agents one on one that are, maybe call it struggling on production, and they're trying to figure out, well, what's more strategic? If I go after listings, I don't have to worry about this whole buyer compensation, um, conversations, or buyer rep agreements, and not getting paid on commissions and having awkward conversations. Well, you and 900 million of those other people are having the same thoughts, right? So are you going to go after the easy option that is everyone's first option, which is go after listings? Everyone always is want to go after listings because it's quote unquote a guaranteed commission, which nothing's guaranteed in life or real estate. Um, but I stepped back and said, forget about all the headlines and news and what's going on with this NAR settlement. What is your expertise? Are you more buyer heavy or are you more seller heavy? And this was a gal within my office that's a good producer, producing about 7 to 15 million a year. And she goes, I've always represented more buyers, but it's going to be really difficult. And I said, okay, well then obviously you don't believe in your product, you know? And it kind of clicked for her. She's like, you're right. Why would I totally transfer my niche of my business that I've been doing for almost 5 years because I think it's going to be an easier options? This is what we call, and you probably heard it, I'm probably stealing someone's line, the pros versus the amateurs. The pro is going to stay focused at what they're really good at. The amateurs are going to shift where they think the money is the easiest to be made. So anyhow, the education is still as normal. I'm still educating people in regards to how to believe in the product they're serving. And it's not just to how to find the loopholes around this whole NAR settlement, and that the fact that commissions may change as far as the structure of, how they're paid and who paid by, and how they're going to structure certain agreements. Um, I try to get my agents to really kind of throw that out of their mind, not from like a legal perspective, because we need to understand the legalities of it. So if certain agreements, which the NAR settlement did say that it went from there needs a buyer rep agreement to actually now there needs to be just some sort of agreement. So it's actually not a buyer rep agreement required, but there has to be an agreement in regards to the commissions being paid out, which has always been the traditional way we go about it. Um, so what's
Yeah, I
that?
did actually. That's interesting. So NAR originally, I thought the original communication was around there being a written buyer agreement. So you're saying that now that's kind of morphed and evolved so far in
Uh,
regards to now just being.
and that's interesting. It actually released just this last week. And the only reason I know it is because I've been kind of paying attention to these. Have you heard of these portal wars between Zillow, Realtor, so on and so forth? So CoStar just ended up buying Matterport for $2 billion with a B. And we learned this through our real estate coach. So what they're doing, and you're seeing, is that they're shifting from consumer friendly to realtor friendly, which I think is actually kind of a strategic move. With that being said, Zillow, I think it's Zillow. Hopefully you can fact check me. They just came out with some sort of like 7-day tour launch.
I did, yeah. I saw that actually. I didn't have a chance to read about it, but that was like yesterday or something, or 2 days ago or something like that.
So if you read into that, from what I've obviously have learned from our coach, is a lot of agents pushed back when that was announced and said, how does that go in line with the NAR new settlement and the rules and regulations? And how they're getting across it is, if you actually pull up that form on the 7-day tour agreement, it's an agreement. It's not a buyer's rep agreement. So that's how they're getting by, that you have to sign this agreement. And this is why I'm saying, the cart before the horse is this thing is constantly changing. So for us to try to study it one week and say, oh, we figured it out, these are the guidelines, I almost want to say it's a little bit irrelevant. Obviously, it can kind of go in one ear and out the other, and you're digesting what you want, but there's nothing set in standard. As most people call it, it's still business as normal, obviously, until the hammer slams down in July. But this new portal war Zillow launch thing kind of was an eye-opener on these whole agreements, because that was like the first thing that brokerages were leaning in on, saying, hey, just study buyer rep agreements, and that's all we're going to study. Like, it's not any longer, hey, how do you get in front of someone, sign a listing agreement, get them signed up. Now it's like, hey, let's educate you on having that hard conversation of, you meet buyer at open house, and you need to sit down with them and actually get them to sign something after one day of meeting them and showing them what you have to offer. So we did that. So we have a contract training every Wednesdays here in our office, and within the last 2 months, we've only had 2 of those trainings on buyer rep agreements. I think everyone should know any document within the CAR platform, but I think it should be focused on what your core niche service standpoint is. So for the people who do work with a lot of buyers, I think it is more important to hyper focus on those. But for people who are more listing heavy like myself, I'm gonna sit in on those meetings, but I'm not gonna study it and make a niche out of it. That's just not my niche. I'd be entering into a totally different playing field, distracting me from what I'm good at and losing sight of what my focus has always been. So the second thing that a lot of people were talking about beyond buyer rep agreements were concessions. And this is probably more in your guys' field, so I'm going to kind of open the floor a little bit to this, is Fannie and Freddie Mac, who handle about 70% of loans, if my numbers are accurate, they released, I don't know if it was weeks ago, that they were not going to count concession towards allowable percentage on the loan. And then a lot of agents were coming in saying that, VA needs to step up and all that mumbo jumbo. But on these concessions, from the realtor perspective, they were just saying, okay, well, we'll just have them do a concession so that it can cover the buyer commissions in the transaction. And a lot of people thought that was a loophole, that was an easy fix. There's some people getting mad of, I'm sure you guys already aren't big fans of when you get an offer before this all went down and you got $10,000 in commissions to cover closing costs, even though those probably helped as interest rates started to rise. But now you're saying, the struggle was always like where the cap is, are you crediting too much? Then they're trying to figure out other loopholes of, okay, let's reduce commissions, let's do concessions here. Then you got requests for repairs that come in, then appraisal comes in low. I mean, there's so many different cans of worms that we started experiencing as all this stuff started coming down. So within the concession world, that again, to my point of these things constantly shifting, was like the immediate fix that realtors were thinking were going to happen. Whereas fast forward, now concessions are kind of off the picture, and people are just trying to figure out more of how to negotiate these buyer commissions and what it's going to look like. So, do you guys have any thoughts on these whole concessions that anyone wants to speak up on if they're seeing them already? Um, I mean, when Lawrence asked me kind of what this is doing so far, we haven't seen many listings offering out 0% commissions. We are beta testing it right now. I've allowed a couple agents within my office to quote unquote beta test this and see what it does. And I'll give you my feedback here in a little bit of what we've seen over the last 3 weeks of doing this. But I want to stay focused on this whole concession things. Does anyone have any comments on that?
I haven't seen it come up yet, Nico, but I have definitely heard some of the same chatter. I think that Fannie and Freddie essentially saying it's not going to be factored into concessions was huge.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that's the direction that the entire industry is going to go is, hey, this is kind of, I mean, in my personal opinion, it's a bunch of semantics. It's like nothing's changed. Like you could always negotiate commissions. There's no change there. Yeah, it's this big, giant, nasty lawsuit and everything, but business still has to get done and people still need a buyer's agent. I mean, some people may like to go represent themselves, but I think the loan industry realizes like, hey, agents are helpful for the most part. And so we need to empower them to continue to function and assist consumers, especially first-time home buyers who are completely unequipped to go out and navigate finding a house on their own without representation. They need that. And so I think that the loan business is going to capitulate. VA, FHA, all of them will just eventually kind of create uniform policies that just make it crystal clear. If a listing agent or if the seller's paying both agents, including buyers, that's fine. It doesn't count against any special concessions.
Yeah.
I would say that I think our biggest challenge, though, is going to be the situations where our buyers have to cover some or all of the commissions, just because a lot in that space of conventional FHA, VA, a lot of those borrowers are strapped for cash, right? Affordability, is a struggle for so many right now. And so, understanding how that's going to end up being navigated, I think one of the things I mentioned on the phone to you is trying to get an understanding if you think that the industry is going to go to having separate websites right outside of the MLS, kind of like we're talking about, or is there going to be a lot of phone calls to the agent going, hey, what are you guys offering before we go and put our agreement together? So I know whether or not my buyer is going to have to contribute part of the commission. I talked to one agent Monday who was like, yeah, no, I think it'd be interesting because I'm not going to lie. Like if my buyer has to pay the commission and I already know they're strapped for cash, I'm not going to show them that house. Like I'm just not going to go show them that house. Right. And that may not be the right thing to do, but I do wonder what type of impact we're going to see from that. And so, and we have to factor in when we're pre-approving a borrower, if they're short on cash, an extra 1, 2, or 2.5% of that sales price could make or break us very easily, right? And so I think the communication between our loan officers and the agents is going to be really, really important when it comes to us delivering that pre-approval going forward and having it on any of those borrowers and making sure that there's definitely a real understanding of what needs to be written up and offered or whether or not they can go after that property if there's not going to be a seller assisting with commissions. And so I know we're still a little early, right? And that's why, but that's really where what I want to understand is you guys are seeing it happen in your world, like what that communication looks like and how we're, let's say, getting around it, if you will.
I think what I'll just add to answer your question too, Nico, that we've seen the buyer representation agreements sneak up. We've had a couple of them. Like it's not anything even remotely at scale. I think we might have had 2 as an office LC, like 2 so far. So you clearly aren't even necessarily seeing people start to adopt it. I know we've heard other, shops in town on the real estate side of the fence doing a bunch of education around it, trying to encourage its use. But we're not seeing it make its way into, transactions yet, which I think is valuable for you to know, just from the, 50 we close a month, so to speak. What I think is and this might be an interesting framework to kind of think of, put yourself in our shoes, so to speak. What I really care about, because I genuinely think that all realtors do a lot of work on transactions, especially on the buy side of the transaction in terms of just showings. I actually love the idea of having some type of agreement between buyer and agent, just because I feel like there's many times that you see them bounce away after doing a lot of work, and it's devastating for us to watch that happen to, pros. So, well, all that I keep trying to frame up is how do we help, when that time comes in which those agreements are more prevalent, to be able to help educate the buyers as to how valuable the right agent is, and so I think that's one of the things that kind of stands out for me is how do we best help our partners on the agent side of the fence when this change does occur, and clearly it's all up in air and all moving all over the place, so that's something I guess I'd throw back at you.
Yeah, great input. I think there's so much to unpack there between the three of you guys. I'll start with Caleb's. This whole thing, buying a home is your third most stressful thing you do in your life. There's death, divorce, and moving, right? So how our coach broke it down, I love this analogy, is that you're not going to bury yourself. You're not going to represent yourself in a divorce. You shouldn't be representing yourself when you're buying a home, right? Your biggest financial investment of your life. So even to simplify that more, because it's kind of a cliche saying of like, relating buying a home to death and divorce. I mean, way crazy extremes, but it's a good saying, right? So you guys can take that and apply it to lending as well. Like I would never try to do my own type of loan or structure of that in any sort, but you'd be really surprised. I work in the more, call it luxury, high-end space of sales within the Valley. My most, call it wealthiest, financially savvy people, their education level on buying a home and all the things that go into it is very limited. You guys would be blown away with the amount of knowledge that these individuals have when it comes to buying a home. I mean, I was sitting down at a dinner 2 weeks ago with one of my best friends who's a huge farmer, don't want to disclose names, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, very successful, vertically integrated his operation, one of the most intelligent guys I know. And he was trying to buy a home on his own because he knew personally the guy who builds all these houses. And this is a over $2 million purchase. And I had to walk him through, like, do you understand what you're buying? And I didn't try to like shift him any direction, but I just broke it down of like the type of product he was buying, how it was built, where it's located, what his long-term plan was. And this guy, this is comparing, that's like, him spending $5 compared to me spending $5 million if you were to relate it. And I didn't even have any asks or any takeaways out of our conversation. I literally thought he was going to go and perform that. And he calls me back 2 weeks later and was like, hey, let's go check out this house down the street. I said, dude, you were in contract at the house. What do you mean? He goes, yeah, you kind of talked me out of it. Like, you brought up a lot of good points. So that's exactly to my point of, pros versus amateurs. Even though this guy is way more intelligent, way wealthier than I know I'm a true expert. And I say that humbly, right? And I can say that now. I used to think it was conflicting. I never liked marketing, how much we're producing in numbers, what I did personally in numbers. But what I always check is to make sure that my personal greed never goes above my client's needs, wants, and expectations. They're always first. So I can have a desire to perform, make money, but it will never get above serving others. So that's one thing of, kind of this whole separation of pros versus amateurs and really people needing individuals like us who are professionals at what we do. What was your question, Lawrence, again? I was trying to recap on that.
No, I was just really talking in general about the how do I say it? The communication between the agents and buyers and understanding how the buyer's agreements are going to work, who's going to pay for commission, right?
Yeah.
Working together on that front.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I'm going to
We're
combine.
kind of asking how we can help, right, Lawrence? Like how we can help
Like
agents.
how we're going to work together on that.
Yeah, I'll combine Lawrence's and Jim's kind of conversation. So I see that as a double-edged sword, right? I think, one, you're giving too many realtors respect that we all work hard. That's not the truth. There's a lot of lazy realtors, just like there's lazy lenders. And there are a few that work really hard. but are they working correctly? Anyone can work hard. It's like a hamster on a wheel. That rabbit can keep, or that hamster can keep spinning on that wheel, but it's not going to get it probably to the destination it wants to go if it's not on the right path, right? So I say this because it's kind of a recent trauma that I've experienced. Everyone thinks they own a buyer, and maybe they're going to post July. We don't know. But right now they don't, unless you have a buyer rep agreement, which historically and today is not the common practice, right? So this individual, as in buyer A, could have been looking for a home with this realtor who most likely, based on how the market's been the last 5 years, is just a family friend who's probably newer to the industry or doesn't sell these type of homes. And they went and showed them everything that's popped up and maybe is not understanding what the specific needs of their clients are. And then someone like myself has seen this client, knows exactly what they're looking for, and finds something before it gets listed and brings it to them because they have listened and know the expectations of that client and deliver it to them, and they work with that quote unquote agent and not that friend who's been showing them houses for a year. And that's what that pro versus amateur is. And I know that's probably kind of a controversial conversation, but it's really, I think, where people are going to thrive is not selling people to sign some sort of agreement because you're going to put someone in a contract. And this is my own personal opinion. It may be good or may be bad. Some of you guys might like it, some don't. But I'm a believer that you have to earn people's business. You don't just earn it based on them signing a contract and now them being obligated to do it, unless that person decides to do so. But I don't want to teach my team just to go try to convince someone to sell them to sign an agreement that you make sure you for sure get paid, right? And I'm probably being too hard on the topic of the respect. Has it happened to me before that I've shown someone properties for 2 years and they go use someone else because they found their house on their own? Yeah, all the time. Did I get mad about it? Oh yeah, you bet, right? I'm counting all the eggs before it hatches, but that's life. If you didn't go find that product for that client, why do you expect to get paid on it? Right? So anyhow, that's my kind of tangent. I know that didn't really answer your question on how.
No. It's actually helpful, right? So like, and here's a question for you, because that brings up a possibility of how it plays out, right? So
Yeah.
So in one scenario, the buyer agreement is being talked about upon initial sit down between, call it agent A, right, and new potential home buyer.
Correct.
The scenario you're describing is somebody who's like, hey, I'm not going to sign this agreement. We're not going to talk about this agreement until we actually are getting ready to write up an offer on a house. I'm going to start showing you homes. Then we're getting ready to write up an offer on a home. Then yeah, I'm going to have a buyer agreement drawn up because I'm going to represent you on this transaction. Am I hearing you correctly that you'd be like the latter option in regards to your approach?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like my strategy, and this would be a great marketing pitch, is, people are trying to convince you, as in, call it what they call themselves, professionals in the real estate world, that the law is now telling me we have to have you sign this agreement. So go ahead and sign this, and then now you're legally contracted to only use me for the next 6 months, right? And this is why I think that platforms like this are so important, to make sure that clients understand. So a lot of clients go to you guys before us. It would be, and this is just, kind of popped up, a huge opportunity for you guys to help your clients get educated in, you don't need to sign that, right? Initially, if you don't want to. Meaning, hey, we just got you approved. This realtor that I'm just met, they're really pushing me to sign this buyer rep agreement because now they're saying it's legally required, and I really want to buy a house, so I better make sure I sign with them. Well, it's like, are you signing because you're being told it's legally required now? Or are you signing because you think that's a good agent?
Yeah, I think it's a really great call out. And it's a good conversation, I think, to be having with our agents one-on-one, guys. Right?
Yeah, and it's incredibly helpful because like you talk around us in preparation for what's coming in July, right? Like, and wrapping our heads around kind of the what if and how this plays out. And this conversation is premature, but getting your voice on here where we have an opportunity to kind of talk through it.
Yeah, but
That's a really good call. That's a really good call
it
out.
it is and isn't, guys. Like for me, this is all what I've been doing my whole career since I forget what year I got licensed. Um, Call it 2011, I guess, right? So well over a decade, right? Which isn't much for the dinosaurs in the industry that I have a lot of respect for. Um, but
Were you looking at me right now when you said that, Nico? I
Calling us
mean,
all
not that
dinosaurs.
old.
I mean, it was, but it's Zoom, so you didn't have to call yourself out. But you know, look, these conversations I'm having, like I respect. I work with a lot of business professionals, right? It's part of the kind of niche that I work in. I don't go to them saying, "Hey, I need you to only work with me." I call them when I find the house that I know that they like, right? And they may find it on their own, but I'm okay with that now. There is so much opportunity out there for other individuals if they're willing to work and work hard and work correctly. And that's where I think I need my team and myself to get at is keep, I mean, for first and foremost, listen to the needs of your client, right? And they may not be your client, but listen to the needs and wants of others. Because if you're truly listening to their wants and needs, you'll be able to deliver the right product. If you're not listening and you're just going after the commissions, which most people do, they're not going to be delivering the right product. They're just going to be supplying a surplus of inventory, right? So this has never changed for me, guys. Like as far as being able to get in front of it, this is how I believe that most should be operating. It was with the true intentions of what their clients' expectations are, rather than this whole mass scaling on trying to be a numbers performance base and getting just random stuff in front of their clients, hoping that a dart hits and then they can land a commission.
And I know we've got a few questions, so I don't want to monopolize this, but it kind of, your theory also falls in line with kind of Zillow's stance. So when you look at that Zillow agreement that just got published,
Yeah.
right? Essentially, it's them being like, hey, this is a non-exclusive contract that's going to allow us to be able to show these homes. We're not tying you down. You get to go out and look at them. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
You're the first
it's
person,
awesome.
Nico, too, that I've heard in all of our conversations kind of sit in the camp that they're going to take that type of an approach in regards to not trying to tie them down up front. I have not heard anybody take that type of stance yet. So I'll give it back to you for moderating this convo. But
Yeah, no, for what it's worth, yeah, at 11:45, I'm gonna have, I know Myra has her hand up, so I'm gonna ask Myra to go ahead and get her question. And Nico, I know there was a few other things you wanted to touch on, so I want to give you that time because I did
Yeah,
ask, I did ask for this, but I also would love for you to be able to share your other information. So
I'll let Myra ask, and then as far as like little conversations, it's just the big news right now is Realty Concepts Buy Now Guarantee. I'm sure people are wondering what's going on there. How's the market performing? Just some kind of last conclusion items that I can discuss if you guys have the time or want to stay on the line.
yeah, definitely. Myra, go for it.
Oh, I just think more than ever, we just need to support each other, right? The realtor and the lender, where we really sell each other and work with people that we really have the same work ethic. And so like right now, I'm doing a Dave Ramsey class. And as a matter of fact, tonight he's talking about the importance of a real estate agent. And so I have a top producer that's going to come and speak. But some of the things he talks about are like, do they have the heart of a teacher? Do you feel sold or taught? Is this a person of integrity and honesty? But he also mentions, do they have, are they top 10% of the business, or do they have at least how much experience do they have? So I think more than ever, we got to like really support each other. And I think signing that agreement is really a good thing because it also shows the seriousness of the buyer, in regards to wanting to purchase the home.
Yeah, I agree. I think at the point that the agent can prove their worth, their value, and like you said, most importantly, their ability to educate the client and have the best intentions for their clients. Yeah, I definitely agree that contract it would be beneficial on both sides. What I'm hoping it doesn't do though is just uses another loophole for people to sell people, right? We're serving people, not selling people. So we don't have a product. It's not a T-shirt. This is an opportunity to have a client that's a human being that you're trying to help them place in the biggest financial, decision that they're making in their life to fit whatever their specific needs are. And everyone's needs are different, right? It's not just a pick a size, large, medium, or small. It's, hey, can my children be raised here? Can me and my husband, flourish in life here and feel comfortable? Is there equity to be added if they're looking at it a little bit more as a personal and investment opportunity, so on and so forth? And I feel like, people are going to use this as another sales tactic to lock people in, unfortunately. And I hope that doesn't happen.
It undoubtedly will happen in some cases. We are going to have some customers that come to us who are going to be stuck with an agent that doesn't perform well, and we're going to even know by name. We're like, oh man, okay, how long is your agreement, right? We got to get you past that in some cases.
Yeah.
My second thing, I know another person has a question, but the second thing I worry about is, are people going to price out their house? Meaning, again, I'm just speaking in kind of my niche where I focus in. If I'm representing a seller who opts to not offer out a commission, and I thoroughly educate my seller that, okay, the buyer is going to have to pay their own agent. Here's fair market value for your house, call it $2 million. Now this person is going to have to come out of pocket another $40,000 to $50,000 to pay their buyer agency. So now they're technically paying $50,000 over market value of this $2 million purchase, right? And I'm just using larger numbers. But that's what I worry about too, because my conversation now with my sellers, thinking I'm doing it appropriately based on my education and experience, would be we need to price it in line for that coverage to be taken care of. So if it was a $2 million house that we determined that would be, the sales price, I would suggest that since you're not offering out that, let's list at 1.95 so that everyone's clarity of expectations is that that's going to have enough coverage to cover the buyer agency agreement. And if they decide on their own decision, as in the buyer, to offer more, they will offer more because that's their decision and they'll have to cover that. But we're not going to run into the issues of we're overpriced because we're trying to cover this new change. Does that make sense?
Okay. All right. So Nico, if you want, because I don't see any hands up at this point, if you want to move forward with the other information you have over here.
Yeah, so let me give you, it's been a great Q1. A lot of people are saying like, how's the industry doing? Brokerage wide to put in numbers, and I don't speak numbers often, but I think they're relative and I'm happy to share them. We did roughly about 45 million in gross sales just in our residential division. To kind of compare that up to my next topic of conversation, I think Realty Concepts did 120 million, right? And they were 300 and something agents that then jumped up to 600 overnight, supposedly. So for our little niche boutique brokerage, that's right on line with what our goals were, a little bit above them. But business is as normal. What we're seeing though a lot is we're seeing a lot of production, obviously within that 45 million in Q1 of gross sales. But we're seeing a lot of cancellations and huge requests for repair lists. And I haven't seen this in my career where literally they're asking for the whole home inspection to be completed on a request for repair, which may be the reason why a lot of people are canceling. I would say that's probably 50-50 on just the extent in which people are asking for that is unreasonable. And then secondarily, kind of like the second thought of, man, do I actually want to buy this home? So we're seeing a lot of turnover, but what you see within that turnover is it goes right back into escrow. But really frustrating for the seller and the selling agents when they have to keep doing it over again and then kind of thinking they're going to get their money X, and then it shifts over to Y. You're still seeing, which has probably always been the case the last 5 years because of supply and demand, you're buying contingent upon a sale. That's still common. I've only seen 2 zero offered out commissions. One was one that I was going to personally take my clients to. And my initial reaction was like, oh, who's this clown that's offering out 0% commissions? And I'm just going to say that publicly. I don't care. Because it's like, to do it now, I think it's aggressive. Again, I've allowed my clients or my agent one to do it, but it was kind of a unique opportunity. It was multifamily. The guy really didn't want to list. So that's when we decided to opt to, hey, we'll do the 0 offering out and do like an email marketing campaign to see what it looks like. But when I initially saw it, I just want to give you my thoughts on that so you can understand these agents that you're serving of what the mental thought process may be. Initially, it's going to be frustration that now they're going to have to work harder to have this conversation with their buyer. So like instantly I'm thinking, okay, this house just popped up. I potentially have 3 buyers. I'm very familiar with this house. It's a golf course view over San Joaquin Country Club. And I go look at it and I'm like, I don't even think I want to call my clients. But it's like, am I that lazy that I'm not willing to send to my 3 clients that are potential buyers and then just have the easy conversation of like, hey, yeah, it hasn't taken effect, but this guy's offering out 0% commissions. If I do take you to see it, are you open to having the conversation of whether you're willing to compensate me for my expertise? Like, I found you the house, you're not sending it to me, I send it to you. And those are very easy conversations for me to have. But what my next train of thought, I call this stacking. Our brain does this often with anxiety, right? Or anything in life. My next stack upon obviously the selfish ego was money, greed. The second one was actually back to serving my client of, okay, is this house priced right? Right? And the house is probably $500,000 overpriced. So that's when the second kind of red flag went up. So not only 0 offered out commission, $500,000 overpriced, and the house needed a lot of work, in my professional opinion. So again, it's those different stacks of how people are going to process properties and opportunities. But your initial reaction is probably going to be the first one, and that's what our beta test has done. Right? Our beta test has ultimately shown, based on our 3-month case study, which isn't long enough to run a case study, that the other side is becoming much lazier. The agent running this, him and I had a conversation last night. He's like, dude, I'm doing all the work for this buyer's agent, and I'm assuming that it's because either he's not getting paid as much or not getting paid at all, or doesn't know if he's getting paid. So my normal workload on a listing probably doubled, if not tripled. So that's what we're seeing, is that people are taking the route of like the opt out, easy, not knowing what they're going to get paid. And I think that's why, all of us lenders in real estate, we're entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship 101 is doing a work and a performance so good and to your best ability without the knowledge that you have a guarantee of a payment. That's what we signed up for. So by people shifting in this journey, that's one of my biggest takeaways that I actually wrote down and didn't even, mention to you guys, is the journey's always been the same, right? This road. There's just now different ways to get there, right? So for instance, for us, anything that does not change. So it does not change anything for the consumers is what I wrote down. It just makes the journey to get there much more different. As in, now this agent, as in myself in that position, had to do more work than I'm used to doing, right? And most people take the easy opt-out button or the shift to do something different, like you said, of should I even send this to my client, or hey, if you have those pre-talks of conversation, let's go out a different way because that one seems too hard. So you're going to see, again, I'm going to reference this a lot of the pros that can shift to the next stack and say, well, what's in my client's best intentions? And those are when the pros are going to elevate even more and the amateurs are going to fall off and do less business.
Or leave the business.
Yeah, I see a lot of that too. There's a few questions.
I do have a hand up. Lynette, go for
it. Hi, Nico. My TV just popped on. Sorry about that. I just let me mute that. Hold on one second. Okay. So my question was, so what's a really simple way when we have questions from buyers, just a really simple explanation of the changes, just like a few sentences, how to explain the changes that have happened in an easy, really simplified way for them.
Yeah. Right now, I don't think there's an answer. I think there's too much shifting right now to have one thought. But if someone were to call you today or this week, I would say it's business as normal, but what you can expect is more clarity in conversations of how people are going to be compensated. So I keep it very simple, at least for now, that business is as normal. I think based on how you guys each run your own different business, because your world is very similar to ours. If you feel of this strong opinion, I would lean even more on the side of, this is a huge financial investment for you. And when you're making these decisions, to make sure that you're working with the right person is the most important thing you can do.
And you added that, Nico, what I was going to say because of what you said earlier. I think if you're getting that call, right, anybody on my team right now, I think it's important to explain to them. You may have an agent tell you, hey, you have to sign this agreement for me to start working with you. But explain to them, they don't have to sign an agreement just to start having conversations to get to know the agent and see how they can serve them. They should be waiting until they know they're comfortable with that agent before they sign any agreements. Because we don't want them to get locked in for 30, 60, 90 days, right? With somebody who doesn't serve them well, who goes, hey, I'm going to set you up. You're going to get links to properties based on what you told me. And if you like it, even call me, right? We want the agent that's actually truly working for them. So that is a really good question on that.
Yeah. As you guys are talking about kind of strategies to help serve your clients, I think there's two different sides of it, right? The side that I want to talk about first, because it's going to be the quickest, is, agents. Agents think that lenders just refer them a ton of business. And we all know that, that's not the case, right? If you guys did a lot of that, our industry would be completely different. But you guys are in front of a lot of buyers, which maybe are already represented, which seems to be most of the time the case. When I first started in the industry, it was like, I'm looking for a lender that's going to refer me deals. Well, I had to really quickly learn, realize, and accept that is not the industry standard. So from there, what I did realize is that I'm probably going to work with a lot of different lenders. I may have a few that are my preferred lenders, but where I think this is heading to best serve your client is it's really important that the agent, client, and lender relationship and communication is the strongest it's ever going to be, because it's going to be tougher to buy with limited inventory and still higher demand. And it's going to be more strategic of how you put that offering together in order to get your offer accepted at the price you needed to get accepted at. I think to Lawrence's point of how things are going to shift, where people are going to pre-call someone to see what offers they have on the table, again, to me, sounding like a broken record, I've always done business like that. If I wasn't representing my client correctly, I wouldn't care and I would send the offer and just hope that it hits. Heck no, I'm calling that client and say, what do I need to do to get this deal done? Because I know my client wants this house. Now, they don't have to legally tell you, but it is in my client's best intentions to serve my client to go and do more due diligence than's needed by asking that selling agent where we need to be, how are we going to make this work, and then getting back on the horn with the lender to say, hey, here's where they're at. We have to beat it if possible. How can you help us run these different numbers and make the puzzle piece together, right? This communication is going to have to be stronger than ever. Where in the past it wasn't as intricate of the amount of details in which it took to put a deal together. Typically, it was call the agent, know where the basis is at, come in above that basis, and then just kind of go as business as normal. Now, with all these different complexities and strategies, it's going to be a real collective team effort, which I think is actually a huge opportunity for lenders to actually show what they've been doing behind the scenes that most agents haven't seen probably over the last decade because the market's been so easy.
That great stuff. I mean, we're up on the hour. I don't know if you had anything else specific, Nico, that you wanted to share. But if not,
and I can cover a lot more. I really enjoy these. I think we should do them every quarter if you guys are open to it. It helps me kind of get feedbacks from you guys in regards to, some of these outside agents that you're talking to, your own internal thoughts and struggles. your own struggles that you're having conversating with buyers that we're working with. So maybe we roundtable the next one. We'll pick a topic. Maybe in later of Q2 will actually be after July, so I can kind of report back of what the true effect, is on the market holistically or internally within my organization. But I hope you all got some, just one little takeaway from today that you can go and kind of reframe your mind or, help develop another train of thought. That's the whole goal for today, for everyone to take away at least one thing away.
Yeah, no, I know I did, and I'm sure others did as well. So I appreciate it very much, Nico. And I'm going to take you up on the offer.
Yeah.
Thank you, my man. Appreciate it.
Yep. All right, guys. Have a great day.
Good one.
Thank you.